Hello everyone, I am Klarosk, and today I'd like to dissect a horrific uncleared level, previously uncleared, so I can show you how I was able to figure out how to clear this utter piece of trash. So, if you watched my other Garbo video number 10, you'll know that I was trying to figure out a way to get this key from Bowser and go into this D door, which is the only way to the end, where you have to twirl here to get the ending. However, I wasn't sure how to do that. I thought the goal was I needed to get a fire flower from somewhere to get to Bowser and defeat him. But the only other fire flower I could find was over here, and as you can see, there is no feasible way you can get it unless you can deactivate an on-off switch, which I don't think is possible given the layout of the level. However, there is another fire flower over here that I thought was just for soft lock potential and meant nothing. But after taking a closer look at this level, I realized something. The level was heavily hinting at me getting a P-switch, that the P-switch equals the fire flower, as well as telling me that the red coins were all fake and that the Bowser had the key. But the only P-switch I could find was in this very subsequent nonsense area here. However, that's when I realized something. If I do manage to get the P-switch all the way back, I can go into this A door, get the fire flower, place the P-switch over here, and then jump onto the P-switch, entering the door off of it before it activates. And then I can take down this Bowser and go into the D door. But how did I come about bringing this P-switch all the way back, like from this entire level, going backwards through the entire level, back to the beginning? Well, let me dissect this in short. So essentially, when you first enter the level, you need to avoid this hidden block. Bowser's going to sit on you if you don't move, and then you then go into the B door, where you have to immediately dodge a fish, leap up here and do a massive twirl to get over here, while avoiding hitting this inconvenient trap block. You'll be hearing about a lot of trap blocks in this level because there are a million painfully precise ways that the creator wanted to make sure you died as you made your way through. But yes, this is a trap block. It triggers a big spike that just kills your clouds, so I have to avoid jumping on that as I make my landing. Then I jump over here, avoid hitting these two trap blocks, get this acorn suit, break these blocks, avoid this fish cannon, which will send a huge fish down the aisle. And then you leap up and twirl without hitting your head on the ceiling as I did in the original video. And then you have to land here, trigger this Kaizo block or dodge it entirely because this is meant to kill you, and then jump from here over here to go down. Make sure you get small because you won't be able to fit. You're essentially soft locked if you're not small. And then this area, which I didn't understand a lot of things until later. So, I get a free pass into the C door. I run at full speed to avoid the thwomp. And then apparently this fish cannon hidden behind the thwomp will actually fire a fish to kill you, and is also the key to getting through here, which I previously thought you just had to twirl through, which I'm pretty sure would just kill you. So after dodging the fish here and getting through this small gap off the conveyor, I then need to wait for this thing to spawn two fish. I wait for the fish to hit these 2 points, which were at the very least nicely indicated by this creator of evil. Jump on the two fish, get over here, and then when I first got here, I previously thought in order to get to the checkpoint, I had to do a long jump through here without hitting the spikes. But there's a second way. I just go here before the Kaizo blocks to get here. And then we get the checkpoints. Now this is where I started to realize as I got around here, there was way more to this level than I thought that I didn't go over. This A pipe leads to here, and there is literally nothing you can do. Because I initially thought you could go all the way up here, and then go all the way up here to get to here. Apparently that's not a thing. This entire area is fake. What you really want to do is to go into the C pipe, which takes you to this area. After deactivating a switch, you come out of the C pipe, you go here, you have to get a helicopter shroom that I later learned goes underneath the screen, and you have to catch it at this point where you apparently had an ambush thwomp that I didn't realize was an ambush thwomp. Got the helicopter mushroom, and then twirled up here, then I realized quickly that this way was fake because I can't see any conceivable way you'd make it up here from here. Instead, I used the blue blocks here, which are actually blue ring blocks, in which you have to wait for the ring to circle, and then I'm able to land here, and then I'm able to go up here, get up here, not hit this Kaizo block as I did off cam, and because when I get small, that's a very easy trap block that I can fall for. And then this setup basically forces you to be small, which sucks. And then I go into the D pipe. In the D pipe, I immediately had to dodge this very obvious hidden trap block, which, thank goodness, is one of the few traps I think I never hit throughout my time in the level. Then I have to go here, and I learned the hard way that this contraption here is made so that when I go back up here and land here, it deactivates the switch so I fall to my death. So I quickly realized that what I needed to do was jump here, go as little far as possible here, and then immediately jump as the switch hits so I can get over here. Then I figured out that I needed to place the POW here, use this seesaw as an intermediary as I stand on the POW, to drop it and kill the Bob-omb over here. And then jump off immediately before you die to the saw, then retrieve the POW. I thought initially I'd struggle to figure this part out because I thought this thing fires a big muncher that would block your way. Except there's a muncher here that you need the POW for, but thankfully this thing doesn't fire at all unless I guess I jump to. I think I now understand what this blue platform is for. I think they wanted you to jump up so I would launch a muncher. This thing would launch a muncher and I can't get through. But that aside, I never triggered that thing, so I never realized that until now. But I digress. Then you go over here, and here is where I ended up almost worried that I had messed up the puzzle. At the time, I thought the key was to go into the H pipe, which takes you over here, in which I have to dodge a bunch of spinies. I realized the strat was to go right immediately, twirl so that I'm on the spinies, get over here, then carefully navigate my way over here, while dodging Hammer Bros and anything else. Thankfully, I think he hangs around this area. And then go down here into the B pipe, and supposedly get checkpoint 1, except, fun fact, these switches are on the active position. The switch state is off, so I cannot get to the J pipe to get to CP2. The J pipe takes you to here, and then you go into the A door, and then the A door takes you here, which is how I'd be able to get to the checkpoint 2, and therefore not have to torture myself with what I actually had to do in the level. Because I will make a side note that this switch is annoyingly conveniently here to ensure that you can never get the switch state to be properly where it needs to be to get to CP2 off this path. So in fact, I had to actually trust the creator, not go into this completely lie of a pipe, go into the E pipe, which takes you to a section I previously thought was impossible, just absolute junk. But apparently, when you go into the E pipe, I can do a side wall jump to get over here. I will not tell you how many times I missed this side wall jump just to inexperience. 7 times, maybe. And then apparently, twirling on the swamp actually gives me enough height that I can get over here. And then from here, it's pretty obvious that the level is continuable. There's a fish here that tries to fall on you, and then there's this annoying fish that will perfectly get you if you jump up. So I have to jump in the air and then backtrack so this thing falls. And then jump over here. Jump over here. This was one of the other harder parts. Twirl on this swamp as it makes its way, but I have to get up here before I get here to these annoying hidden blocks. Then jump over here. Note that this fish actually doesn't trigger. And jump over here without dying to this fish, which I will confess to dying more than once to, even though I tried my best not to. And then go to this platform, ignoring the P for now. This thwomp here I initially thought was made to lock you in, but in fact this thwomp is the reason you're able to get into the F pipe, because once you go into the F pipe, you end up in this section where the switch state has to be back in the on position. So thank goodness that thwomp's there. I thought it was the opposite purpose. Then you make your way around here. You then have to make a wall jump as high as you can so you don't hit this big muncher block, which will block your path, and which I have activated before. And then I later realized I thought this was a nice find that would come down to pick you up. No. This thing is a hidden block detector that would trigger if you hit any one of these hidden blocks, which I now understand why this is here. And if this triggers, the on-off switch state was switched to off, and I can't get to the checkpoint, which sucks. So I had to avoid all that. I also had to remember that this open area is a trap, that this pipe is not safe to stand on, which is easily forgettable when I'm in the level and not seeing these blocks. And then I was finally able to get to the G pipe, which at long last takes me to the checkpoint. And from here, I'd say the distance between CP1 and CP2 is more annoying than CP2 to the beginning. But thank goodness we got to that point. I go back into the G pipe, which then I have to backtrack on the path I previously took, get back into the F pipe. Thankfully, I discovered there was actually a shortcut here, which allows me to then twirl into here, so I don't have to do all this again. Then I go up here, I run here, I avoid hitting this block. I also avoid getting hit by this big fish in the cannon over here. And then I get this P-switch, which is conveniently hidden over here, which I feel like there was no way that was properly hinted, so without the level viewer, you can't even find this thing. And I initially thought this was just here to be torture and fake, and it was torture. So I then take this P, go back into the F pipe, then I come out of the F pipe, throw the P-switch into this twister, go all the way back around, dodging this muncher again, dodging these hidden blocks again, not step on the P-switch, as I'll confess to have done, but grab it from the side, and then go up here, trigger this block to destroy the muncher, the Bob-omb. Yeah, this is the point where we start going backwards into the level, where there's a million paths that allow you to go back here, as long as you haven't triggered these hidden blocks. But yes, you break this Bob-omb, you then avoid falling into here, as I imagine that will rob you of your P-switch, and break this Bob-omb, which takes you here. And at this point I realized I had to leave the P-switch here, because otherwise I have no way of picking up this Bob-omb and throwing it here. Because this area is so tight that I can accidentally step on the P-switch at a moment's notice. So after doing that, I went back to recollect my P-switch, go this way. This was definitely one of the parts I had to rebuild the level partially, because I had to figure out how to do a triple jump consistently and test different things without despawning the P-switch, and I'm guessing that these platforms, because I will note, the P-switch has despawned multiple times, but I do wonder if the P-switch is considered a global entity when on these platforms. And maybe that's why it doesn't despawn when I make my way here. I think I kind of tried the triple jump around this coin, which is like 4 away from here, because I didn't want to risk it despawning. So I ran from here. I don't know how I pulled it off, but I think there's a way you can get your third jump early, which allows you to make a triple jump all the way up here, and then retrieve the P-switch. After that, it was pretty much easy sailing. I was able to get through the Wiggler, blow this up, go through what's a pretty easy section with no traps back, and then figure out a way to slide in here, which initially killed me a few times. Make sure to hold right here so you don't fall to your death. And then make your way up, triggering 3 blocks and dodging a big fish and getting into the A door. And this is where you finally get to place the P-switch down and take on Bowser, who is not as easy to face as I thought. I will confess dying once in the battle to him, which is not on cam, because I got hit by one of his fireballs when trying to survive over here. Apparently, I think it's easier to alternate going back to this door and going right, because he has a harder time hitting you on this side. And that's how I finally managed to take him down, get a good amount of hits. And thus, I finally cleared this nonsense of a level. I will confess, the hardest part was honestly figuring out what to do at various points. For A, figuring out the way to get to CP2 after I realized that this switch state was deactive. B, just figuring out what I needed to do to get the Fire Flower back to the start, because it was very obvious there was this entire path back. But from where to get back is the harder parts, because I didn't realize this Fire Flower was real initially. Because I initially thought you had to find a way to get it through here, and that the P-switch was a complete fake, and I also thought this room was fake, when in fact this was the only way to get to the CP and progress the level. So, yeah. Fun level, right? If anyone wants to take my 99:59 minutes 90 to 99 world record, go for it. I hope this guide helps you, and I hope this guide helps anyone from Team 0% and anyone else to try and clear future uncleared levels that I cannot do, because I will confess, I am not a Kaizo player, and I know one other level that I'd never be able to do in my wildest dreams. Well, many levels. But with that, that'll be it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.